Buenas and half a day, the Committee on Education and Infrastructural Advancement, Border Protection and Maritime Transportation, Guahan Preservation and Self-Determination, and Federal and Foreign Relations will now convene this virtual information hearing. A continuation from the January 25th, 2021 virtual information hearing will be followed by an oversight hearing regarding the Port Authority of Guam. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, and it is currently 9:05 in the morning. For the record and in accordance with open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, January 25th, 2021, and the second notice on Thursday, January 28, 2021. Notice of today's hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Joining me today for this virtual informational and oversight hearings are Speaker Therese Terlahi, Senator Mary Torres, Senator Chris Duenas, Senator Tony Yata, Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, Senator Tello Taigui, and Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you everyone for being here today and joining us. For the general rules of conduct, all must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep your video on at all times. Ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into your microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app feature chat box. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Each member will be allowed to pose questions to an individuals testifying and will be given the allotted time as needed. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual present is not permitted. Okay, good morning, colleagues, and General Manager Roy Respicio, Chairman Santos, and members of the Port Authority Board. Thank you for being here today. We are continuing the informational hearing first, and then we will move into the oversight hearing. For the informational hearing, we left off on the drug-free workplace policy. And then as soon as we complete that on our agenda, we will move into the oversight hearing regarding the recruitment and hiring practices and human resources management of the Port Authority of Guam. So General Manager Roy Respicio, can you please just inform us once again of the drug-free workplace policy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank you for this continuation of this informational hearing. I just want to quickly recognize our board chair, Mr. Frank Santos, and our two deputy general managers are also in this Zoom meeting. I guess where we left off discussing the drug-free workplace policy, and I'd given an overview that the Port Authority of Guam is guided by the drug-free workplace policy, as well as the standard operating procedure for how these drug tests are to be conducted. And if you have any specific questions, Madam Chair, relative to this or any particular instance where you believe that we may or may not have been following the drug-free workplace policy, then I'm certainly here to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. It is not a matter whether I believe or not that the Guam Port Authority is following the drug-free workplace policy. This is an informational hearing on how the Guam Port Authority implements their drug-free workplace policy. So the first question I have is, what types of training have been provided to ensure a drug-free workplace, and what outreach programs have been provided to employees who may suffer from substance abuse?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Our drug-free workplace policy is being handled by a PHR. They've been on a contract with the port, and so they administer the drug testing. Now, in terms of what kind of training is being done, Well, the HR staff, the drug test can either be ordered by the general manager or the department's employee representative. And so in the cases of the port, I explained in the last informational hearing, Madam Chair, is that we test automatically for workplace accidents. And we didn't start coming up with the positive until the latter part of last year. That's all of 2019 and then toward the end of 2020. And so when we had one positive, and then not too long after that, we had another case, two other positives that were a result of a drug place accident. I told the two deputy general managers and the team that we will start doing random drug testing. It would be unannounced. And so beginning in December 30th, I believe I wrote a memo to all the employees reminding them of the drug-free workplace, the types of testing that will be conducted at the port, and how they're subject to all of these testings. And so shortly after that, we had tested a division within the port. 24 employees were tested and 24 were negative. So going back to the three other instances, the first employee who tested positive, he had acknowledged that he was on meth. He said that he wanted to be given a second chance, as all employees do when they find themselves in this situation. And so we worked through our HR staff. We worked with Guam Behavioral Health. He went through the intake, went through that process. I did give him the maximum suspension in lieu of termination. And he was also drug tested prior to me having to make the decision when the 10 days are up on what to do with that decision. And so I opted to, per the personnel rules and regs, to do suspension in lieu of termination. That employee has since gone through the Guam Behavioral Health, successfully completed that program, and continues to be a productive member of the port. Then we had two other instances after that, same situation, and those two employees are still going through the notice of proposed adverse action process. So I can't disclose what the disposition of those two cases are because I cannot until such time action is taken with the final notice of proposed adverse action. But generally, you could see, Madam Chair and members of your committee and members of the legislature, that there is such a thing as second chances, that there is such a thing under our policy with the employee assistance program. That's the other thing I'm working with all the division heads, all the supervisors, all the leaders to reach out to the Port Authority employees. And if they suspect that any employee is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that they have an opportunity to come forward. We will work with behavioral health. We will see what their capacity is to do the hard work to turn their lives around. And if they test a positive anytime after going through the successful completion of the employee assistance program, then their only recourse is to be terminated. So in a nutshell, that's how I've been applying my leadership at the port based on the drug-free workplace program, based on the rules and regulations. Now, certainly other people in my position could take another approach where the employee tests positive, they're terminated. Never mind due process, never mind the employee's ability to find it from within themselves to make right of the bad choices they made. And from my perspective as general manager, we train these employees. I have one of these employees that's really good mechanic, that is very that doesn't need to be told how to do their job. Now, I'm not saying because they're an employee with mad skills that they could use drugs and still be employed at the port. Certainly, there's consequences. And in our last informational hearing, we left off of the definition of zero tolerance. And zero tolerance means when you take action per the rules and regulations, per the policies. Not having zero tolerance means not doing anything. I believe I have zero tolerance, Madam Chair, because I did get the maximum suspension under the personnel rules and regs. And I have zero tolerance because we're working outside of the port with the particularly director of Guam Behavioral Health, Teresa Ariola, to have these employees go through the intake process. And so out of 353 employees, we have 3 employees that are going through this, and they didn't reveal themselves until December of last year. So we will continue to do these kinds of testings and continue to address these manners in which the results come out accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Respicio. Chairman Santos and perhaps members of the board, what role do you play in the decision-making process when for the drug-free workplace policy?
Madam Chair, thank you for your question. I leave everything to my general manager because they're the day-to-day operation. I want to rely on them in making that decision. And also for our HR and also the general manager regarding the drugs, they must comply to our personal rules and regulation, and they must follow that. The board will just get the information from the general manager on his manager report regarding what is really happening at the port. Other than that, the port do not manage, micromanage, involve in hiring employees, but I leave that to the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Respicio, do you believe that the human resources at the Port Authority of Guam and yourself have acted in accordance with the personnel rules and regulations of the Port Authority of Guam, which is adopted in 2009 by statute?
Yes, I do.
And has that been vetted through your legal counsel?
It's a policy that has not changed. And it's a policy that, as we talked about, I think it was like 2010 or 2012. Now, if there's anything specifically that you believe that we haven't followed, then I'm hoping to hear from that specific point where you believe there was an infraction. But I could tell you, Madam Chair, on the record, off the record, that as general manager, I'm following the drug-free workplace. I'm following the drug testing policies. And remember, this policy gives the general manager the discretion on the frequency of tests, whether it's necessary or not. But what it does not give the general manager discretion on is drug testing based on a workplace accident.
And can you explain that?
So when there's an accident in the yard, if the accident is not equipment failure and it's manpower issue, then our employee, designated employee representative, Mr. Sean Cepeda, he's actually the one that makes that determination. So as general manager, I don't say Sean test or not test. I leave that decision entirely up to HR staff, because we also want to have a degree of separation to where we can remove any doubt that they're testing some and not testing others.
Okay, thank you. I will start the order of questioning, starting with Speaker Terlahi. Do you have any questions at this time?
No questions on the drug policy, thank you.
Senator Torres, do you have any questions at this time?
I just wanted to ask the general manager and the chairman, there's the last hearing that we had, there was a lot of questions about the frequency of tests and when you stood up drug testing. But I also wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss that within the context of what you were experiencing the past year. For example, we know that we are nearing the 1-year mark of the pandemic when Guam was declared in a state of health emergency. And throughout this period, we're well aware that the port was operational 24/7, never stopped operations. All employees were required to show up for work. You also, within this time frame, stood up a clinic at the port where you were doing a lot of assessments, tests. You entered the the contact tracing program where some of your employees were certified contact tracers, and that you also were managing the testing of employees at the port because of the incidences of COVID that were presenting themselves. So I think that it's important to also discuss that, because there was no doubt that there was extreme activity at the port, not only with ensuring the continual throughput of cargo through the port, but you were also managing um, everything related to pandemic and your employees and the port users. So do you feel that absent that, there may have been an opportunity for more frequent drug testings, or do you feel that what you exercise, that what you did conduct and the timing that you conducted it was all within reasonable context of what was going on? I know it's a convoluted question, but I'm trying to be fair about what the port was up against, and how much the port was managing in terms of having the pandemic, having the clinic, having the contact tracing, having the COVID testing, and also being responsible for ensuring that any drug activity or drug suspicion was being investigated and tested. So can you just comment on that, Roy or Mr. Santos?
Thank you, Ms. Chairman, if I can go ahead. Thank you, Vice Chair, for that question. Yeah, in the context of the pandemic, the Port Authority is the only agency in the government that remained 100% operational. GMH, some of their divisions, telework, GPD, they closed down records and ID, and the same can be said for all those other critical agencies. Even public health, there's some divisions of public health that were able to telework. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that they had to do what they needed to do to maintain their core responsibilities. At the Port Authority of Guam, our core responsibility is ensuring that 90% of the goods that come into the island, that come to the port, that the port remains operational. And the governors declared the port to be truly 100% operational because of its essential nature. And so we were all hands on deck, from all of finance to all of HR, even the maintenance division. Early on, I said, every single employee at the port is 100% essential because we're required to be 100% operational. So, I didn't even try to respond to the public saying, make some essential, make some non-essential. As general manager, I have to respond to what I need to do to keep the port 100% operational. And the Port Authority employees came through with flying colors, as you can see. Having said that, Senator, we didn't sacrifice workplace safety. We didn't stop working with customs to get them to do whatever's needed to address the containers that are coming in. We did certain things like we modernized our processes. Instead of going 7 front-facing steps, we did that in 3, just to reduce the population here at the port. Since February, 1 month before the public health declaration by the governor, we issued PPEs, masks, gloves, and eye shields to our dock workers, and gave them a ton of information that we had. And you talked about the port clinic. We have almost 45,000 visits since we started. Now, absent the pandemic, again, why are we drug testing? Are we drug testing just to let the employees know that the Port Authority is drug-free, and we're drug testing to demonstrate that? And so I said, when we are drug testing because of workplace accidents and the employees are coming up negative, there's no evidence for me as general manager to say, oh, let's just have random drug testing just so that we can have a chilling effect on the employees and the drug use from the employees. So like I said, it wasn't until the first test later on in the year where an employee tested positive. That was my first true experience as general manager with an employee who tested positive for meth. and then working with the employee and doing what we did. And then not too long after that, we tested 3 and 2 out of the 3 became positive. Then the record shows that we immediately took action. I had a division head meeting, and I told the division managers that that if I learned that an employee who tested positive was an employee in their division, that it was obvious that they're on drugs, that I will take administrative action from the leader all the way up. And you saw that with the 2 employees that evaded. I took those 2 employees and I determined with the team who are surrounding them in a leadership capacity. It's the 2 leaders, the supervisors, the superintendent, and they're currently going through the MPAA process. And so when I tested 24 and 24 came back negative, we're going to keep testing. And if the issue is random drug tests just for optics, in this pandemic, you know, we have to understand what our constraints are. We can't have them congregate. We can't have them, but just because we're in a pandemic, I can't say that's the reason why we weren't drug testing. We did other kinds of testing in terms of COVID. About 459 employees were tested through public health. We lost a coworker here, Henry St. Nicholas. We stood up the port clinic. And so we're doing everything and anything to keep the port operational. And we will have random drug testing because that's what the policy requires. But again, it's a degree of reasonable suspicion. And even the Attorney General came out with an opinion that said drug testing in general is unconstitutional, provided that there are law enforcement and test designated positions. And so in the hall of government, there's no random drug testing for those positions that aren't test designated. And again, I just keep asking, what is the end game in this? I understand the informational hearing, but in the upcoming oversight hearing, is there like rampant drug use among the port employees that this committee is hearing, that I'm not doing enough to do random drug testing? And I've explained why we haven't done random drug testing early on, and how I've responded as a leader here at the port when we did have those few instances. And it wasn't, there's no gaps in time. 1 tested positive, that raised my concern. Immediately after, 2 tested positive out of 3 tested, that certainly got our attention. And going into this year, the employees were reminded, and I don't know if you have that memo, but I could submit that memo into the record, reminding the employees that they signed off on a drug-free workplace, the types of testing that will be conducted, what will happen if they become positive, and what will happen if they come forward prior to being drug tested. And I even said in writing that if they come forward before being identified through a drug test, as general manager, I won't take any disciplinary action if they're going to go through Guam Behavioral Health. But if they don't successfully complete that program and then they test positive after if they do successfully complete the program, then you already know what their fate is. So there's not this let's go keep all drug users at the port. No, the safety of the port, the security of the port is a paramount concern to me as general manager.
Thank you for that explanation. You know, the one thing I also want to note is that the port really is a team effort when you think about the nature of their work and that they work in groups regularly. So, you know, the ability to spot people who are questionable or there's reasonable suspicion, I know exists there, even amongst the teams and the supervisors who work very closely with their teams. So I thought it was important to, you know, allow you to discuss that, because we can't take for granted what the climate is there at the port. I mean, during COVID, and also, you know, the idea that perhaps you can, you know, increase the random testing. That's a prerogative. but then again, there's always a balance to everything, right? But it all falls back and what would be the best approach. But in terms of being able to spot and have reasonable suspicion, um, the environment, right, it is ripe for that at the port in terms of how they work, the nature of the work, the proximity of how they work amongst each other as well. But thank you. I have no further questions, but Sidus Maasi for that explanation.
Thank you, Senator Torres. And just for the record, the purpose of this informational hearing is just because my fiduciary responsibility as your oversight chair. And there have been concerns in the community. And so we brought this to openly discuss the situations at the port and even the things that you have done as general manager and all the port employees have accomplished during this time of COVID. And so this was part of the informational hearing so that the public is aware how the port functions, their role, the types of grants that they have, and to include the drug-free workplace policy. And this is just full transparency. No one is accusing anyone of anything here, Mr. Respicio. It's just transparency that the public will see how the port is operating and the mitigations put into place and also the administrative actions that are taken so that they can be reassured that the port and all other agencies within the government are doing their job within the limits of the law. And so that's what we want to ensure. So we're not going out here and making this a political issue and trying to move it in one direction or not. It's just for simple transparency and let the people be aware of the actions taken. You can say things in the media and in the news, but they don't detail the facts and the specifics of what we're getting into in this informational and oversight hearing. That's the bottom line. So we're focusing it on that. Okay, Vice Speaker Barnes, do you have any questions at this time?
Madam Chair, yes, I do have one based on presentation as provided. I want to thank the previous speaker, Senator Camacho, for Torres, for asking that, because it kind of answered my question as it relates to what has happened in the past and what is happening today. And I must say, Madam Chair, that based on working closely with trying to bring to the forefront for our community in as far as economics and diversification on transshipment, I want to say that our team has been working closely with the port and with other stakeholders in as far as the economic viability for Guam. And I must say that receiving information from other island nations about what Port Guam has done and Port Strong for Guam has done to the rest of the road, it makes me feel like if this is being, if there's anything that is out of the ordinary and things that are not being, I guess, are being assumed, then we bring it to the forefront. And that's why sometimes having informational briefings or concerns is very fruitful, not to slam anybody, but just to see how process is done. So my first, if I'm allowed, at least a couple of questions, was the good general manager talked about the administrative process with his team. So when decisions come about or concerns come about, is it the responsibility of just the general manager, or does he include the whole administrative team? And if he can provide that, because he did say that he works closely with his administrative team, and if he can acknowledge who that administrative team is besides the board, because I know that the chairman said he doesn't want to micromanage the operations of the port. So if he can just reiterate that and tell me who his administrative team is, please.
Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, thank you, Madam Vice Speaker, for the question. In the spirit of transparency, in wanting to get a good idea of how these policies have been implemented, I do have Ms. Carmen Netedog and Mr. Sean Cepeda standing by, and I'd like to quickly bring them in so they can answer any questions you or the committee may have. You want to hear from the people that are implementing these things, so I've asked them to be available.
Thank you, Mr. Respicio. If we can take a pause and bring in those individuals, that we would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're going to go into a quick pause for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Madam Chair, they're situated.
Thank you, Mr. Respicio. Can you please just introduce them and then we can move forward with the Vice Speaker's questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have with us Mr. Sean Cepeda, who is the acting Personnel Service Administrator. The Personnel Services Administrator, Ms. Francine Rocho, is on a scheduled off-island trip. I believe she's joining us via your legislative website page, and also Ms. Carmen Netadog. Both of these individuals have been at the port for some time now, particularly the period that you're inquiring about. So I'd like to turn it over to them.
Thank you. And just real quick, before I forget, I'd like to welcome Senator Blas and Senator Moylan for joining us today. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Vice Speaker.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And again, Senator, I really appreciate you bringing the team in, because you continue to say it's a team effort from the Port Authority. And I just wanted to ask my question is, as it relates to drug testing programs, as it relates to what has happened in the past versus what is happening today, are there any concerns of issues brought about on how, I guess, drug testing is being conducted under what has happened in the past and what is happening today? Only because as we look at what is perceived, perception is everything. If this is not just done by the manager alone, but is done by an administrative team, what is the process? And what is different from what has happened back then to today? So I know that's a loaded question, Madam Chair, but I think it's important that it come up to the forefront, and anybody at Port can answer that. I mean, what has happened in the past, if there's any, because it's automatic that if there is an accident, according to what I'm hearing today, if it's an accident, there is automatic procedures of what is being done. It's an automatic testing. There are things that are put in place by the administrative team. Am I hearing that right? Can somebody answer yes or no? I can't hear.
Just a minute, Vice Speaker. I'm trying to find them if they're in the room.
Yes, if there is an accident, we automatically
Thank you.
test.
Yeah, you automatically test, right?
Yes,
And
we
there's
do.
procedures as noted. So the general manager is correct in saying that if there's an accident, there's no questions asked. There automatically is a procedure in place through your.
Oh, shit.
She muted herself.
I didn't mute myself. Sorry, someone keeps muting me. So I want, again, just a reassurance based on accidents that happen at the port. It is a procedure with the administrative team, not just the general manager, but the team, that if there is an accident, that it automatically goes through a process of getting tested. Is that a correct statement to say?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So the question I have then is, maybe what I need to ask is, based on procedures that are in place right now, have there been any concerns or issues brought about on how random drug testing has happened in the past and what is happening today? I don't want to put anybody under the scrutiny, but I'm just asking, is there a difference? Maybe
Yes,
I
there
okay,
is a
and it,
difference, ma'am.
okay,
In the past, when we have conducted random, first of all, random drug testing is requested by the DER, which is the designated employee representative. And with that said, in the past,
who's that? Who is that? Who is that D, whatever you just said?
the DER in the past it's supposed to be the HR, human resources personal administrator. But in that time, it was taken away from the HR office. The random drug testing was taken away and it was given to the deputy general manager of operations. And
So that's not being done today.
yeah, today it's much different. We're actually following the policy. The general manager has appointed the DER, which is Sean and Francine. And for the process, we are doing it. We're following the process through the policy. Well, in the past, we the DGMO at the time will request for a random drug testing. And I had some concerns while I was the acting administrator that what conducting the random drug testing, it was not consistent. He would go to where the drug testing will actually, HR would not know when the drug testing is happening. So I received some concerns while I was acting that the DGMO would go to the area where the drug testing and pull people out of his preference and won't make them take the drug testing. Versus today, at least Sean would know when the drug testing will be, and he would be at the site. We wouldn't know that there's a drug testing at my time. The responsibility was taken away from the human resources administrator at the time.
Okay, so today, based on the procedures and based on what is supposed to be the rules and regulations as described in your process, it is being adhered to today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then if we just move forward from today, the process on any drug testing program that exists today, if there is doubt, that there is already a process in place today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, Madam Chair, I did have a couple of other questions, but I know that Senator Torres's questions earlier really brought to light some of the issues that I had in my mind, and I'm hoping that you can afford us the opportunity to come back on other issues as it relates to this part.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator Shelton, do you have any questions at this time? Okay, no questions. Senator Titagui, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and good morning to you, Director Respicio at the port. Sorry, my internet has started to go off and on, so if I get cut off, I'll just hop back on. Anyways, it was mentioned earlier, Rory, when did you become the director of the Port Authority of Guam? When did you take the RAM?
January 8, 2019, when I was hired by the board.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait. Hold on 1 second because I can't hear.
Mr. Respicio, can you please speak into your microphone?
Yeah.
No.
January 8.
Yes, say it again.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're sharing a mic here. So January 8, 2019, when I was hired by the board.
And when did you have your first drug testing at the port?
Maybe a month ago. First drug testing, random drug testing, but the first
just a month
drug test, no.
Yeah.
The drug testing based on a workplace accident happened throughout the year and years.
Okay, but your
25
first
months.
random drug testing. Yeah, my question was your first. I'm sorry, I should have been more specific. So your first drug test ran randomly. When did you first have that?
Yeah. So I believe that's what your question is. So
Yeah.
I answered January.
Oh, just this month was your first random drug testing since you've been a director at the port?
Correct.
Why did it take so long?
So as I've been explaining, throughout the first year, we always test automatically for drug testing from a workplace accident. So we've been doing those testing consistently and per the policy. It wasn't until December of last year, Senator, when an employee was tested from a workplace accident, that employee turned up positive. And then maybe a couple of weeks after that, we tested 3 employees from another workplace accident. There was a hole in the wall and 3 people were involved, and 2 came back positive. So that was beginning around December. So on December 30th, I wrote a letter to all the employees, reminding them of the drug-free workplace program, the testings that are to be conducted based on random suspicion, based on return to work, based on workplace accident. And so based on that, I saw a video of one of the employees in a particular division, and in my mind, that didn't look right. And so we did the drug testing for that division, and 24 were tested, and 2 evaded, and 24 came back negative. So 24 out of 24, and this was the subject.
I guess, because I don't mean for you to repeat what you said. I was listening to you earlier about your explanation and greatly appreciate that thoroughness on the step-by-step. But I guess my question would be, why would you wait so long for an accident to happen where there came out a positive? You try to avoid, you try to be proactive. So, if you were in office since January of 2019 and you didn't decide to do a random drug testing until almost a year later, especially considering the port and the comments that are being made by the port, I'm sure you want to redeem the reputation of the port and prove that things are doing well there, that after 6 months into office that you might start the random drug testing. So I was just wondering why you had to wait so long to do this type of random drug testing. That was all.
First of all, it wasn't waiting to do random drug testing. I'm also having to proceed with caution in how random drug tests are administered. You have Attorney General opinion saying that it's unconstitutional unless it's test designated or law enforcement positions. So what is the purpose of random drug testing? We talked about this earlier. If the purpose just to keep testing to say, hey, we have a random based on all the chatter out there, the data that's been coming back didn't reflect the chatter out in the community about the port employees being on drugs. It's automatic to test when there's a workplace accident. So even if we kept drug testing, your implication is that we wouldn't have any workplace accidents, Senator. And so if you look at the chronology of it.
No, Senator, Director Respicio, I'm not saying that at all. Please don't put words in my mouth. Approach to this is what I was referring to. But, you can add every explanation. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Madam Chair, because I know there's other people who want to speak on this. But the point is that, why not? This is an area that the people of, the Port Authority, that's a major artery into our community. If there needs to be more testing going on, absolutely, especially in a place like that. We hope that you can bring some trust to the community or some confidence into the community that we are being very alert to everything that's coming into the port. We are being very safe, and that's all I'm saying. It's just, I think that if there's anything that you'd like to put into your rules and regulations on drug testing, it's not having to wait until an accident happens that you do a testing. It should be done randomly. And I think 6 months is a good enough time, not wait a whole year. That's all I'm saying, Director Respicio. And I hope you don't take it wrong. I'm trying to find every way possible to bring some confidence in our port and the people that work there. There are some great individuals that work at the port, some great individuals, and doing their part. That's all. And the Vice Speaker, the Chairman mentioned earlier about the importance of this oversight, and that's all we're doing. So please don't put words in my mouth, with regards that I assume this, assume that. No, it's called a proactive approach. That's all I'm saying. And that's all my intention is. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Thank you.
So you're saying a lot,
Senator Kaidigui. Mr. Respicio,
Thank you.
I have a follow-on question. Maybe it will just kind of clear things up. Is it normal practice, because you've been in the government for so long, and so I'm sure you're aware, is it normal practice to conduct random drug testing within agencies every 6 months? Has it been normal practice for Port Authority of Guam in the past?
No, and apparently it's not normal practice in the legislature either. Think about it.
Mr. Respicio, no one is attacking you right now. I'm asking you a question. And just to clear the air, just so that we can have an unbiased understanding of what happens, this is just a general question. That is this normal practice? And if it's not, it shows that you are doing your duty when there are accidents taking place to implement the drug-free workplace. You brief your employees, you remind your employees about the drug-free workplace. And so really, if this is something that we need to examine in all of our line agencies, then this is something that maybe we can discuss further. But right now, I don't think anyone, for me, in this oversight, we're not in this informational hearing, we're not making any accusations towards the port employees. It's just a matter of question. And so the question is do you feel that we should do more random drug testing within the port? Or do you think that the accidents correlate to the positive tests that you've received?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. And I'm going to try to frame my answer in the context of what the personnel rules and regulations and the drug-free workplace policy provide.
And that's all we're asking.
There's a reason why it's called random, and there's a reason why it's left to the discretion of the agency head. For me, I'm not going to drug test employees to find who are on drugs, because for me, that's not the purpose of random drug testing or drug-free workplace. And so when the evidence presented itself that one employee, all of 2019, not a single positive for drugs with all the workplace accidents that we had at the port, certainly I assure you, Madam Chair, that if on February 1st, if, for example, it's a workplace accident on February 1st and there was an employee or employees that tested positive, then I'm going to start doing these kinds of things. But there's so many things involved in drug testing. There's resources, which I'm never going to say I don't have the money, so I'm not going to do it. There's personnel that are involved. There's also, you never want to make any organizational organization and all the employees feel like, as general manager, I'm going to feed into all the rumors or suspicion that they're on drugs. So I'm just going to randomly keep drug testing them. So, and I also came into the port where I needed to stabilize the finances. I need to stabilize the morale. I need to build their efficacies and let them believe what it means to be port strong. And all of this is part and parcel to the journey that I've had at the port over the last 25 months. And so to say that if I was doing random drug testing early on, we wouldn't have any workplace accidents. Okay, so those people involved in the workplace accidents were testing negative up until December of last year, when we had those cases pop. And I'm looking at this straight in the face, and I'm not looking the other way. We're not turning around. Where we are addressing the needs of the employee in relation to how that employee is responsible to provide the overall work safe environment. And I'm telling you, if an employee tests positive after successfully completing the EAP program, then that's what the focus should be about. If I'm not taking any disciplinary action on any employees who tested positive, that's what the focus should be about. But I assure you, Madam Chair, and as diligently and a hard worker as you are, I assure you that I am implementing the drug-free workplace and the SOP to the T. I spent 14 years in your seat, and I majority of my term, I was in the majority, and I had oversight responsibilities as well. So I understand the difficult position you're in. But I also want to make sure that if you can guide me, if you can point to any infractions in the drug-free workplace policy, and if you guys want to, and if senators want to say randomly drug tests every quarter, randomly drug tests semi-annually or annually or every day, then that's what the policy should reflect.
Right. Okay. So now my next question is, every time there was a workplace accident, did you take action as the general manager in ensuring that the drug-free workplace and the personal rules and regulations were applied?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Ada, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. This is for the board chair, Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Santos. Yeah, I just wanted to find out, at what point does the board intervene or have oversight of what is going on in the drug-free workplace program? I understand that you said you leave it to the general manager, but at what point does the board convene and say, okay, we have an issue here, and how does the board address that issue?
Thank you for your question, Senator. When the reports reach the board regarding incident of the port, especially when it comes to drug, then the boards will give a directive to our general manager to take care of that problems, find solution to that problems, and make sure that nothing will happen to the port regarding this incident. If you need any random testing, go ahead and do it, because we want to make sure that the port is safe for everyone, especially our port employees, and also always advise the supervisor or the manager of that section that the supervisor of that section should know every individual employee of their section. If they see that something is happening to that person in that section, then he must consult that person, whether you have personal problems, financial problems, or even family problems, and take care of that problems instead of going directly to the general manager. But we give a directive. My fellow board member will make that decision and give directive to the general managers, the three managers, to make sure that they take care of those problems that is happening at the port. Thank you.
Thank you. So you are, then the board is aware of when incidents happen, whether it's a work related incident, and that it was in relation to a drug issue.
Yes, sir. During our board meeting, the manager will submit to us his reports. In that reports, if we find something that we give more important regarding to the port or any incident, then we will find some solution and give that to the general manager to solve this remedy of the problems that is happening or occurring at the port.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that the board does have some type of working relation with the manager in this drug-free policy. This is for the general manager, Respicio. I understand. I had a constituent that called yesterday asking about a work-related yard incident that happened where an individual got injured, lost a limb, and they just wanted to know whether the limb, the prosthetic limb, what was the status on that.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Senator. That employee just got back from Hawaii. He got fitted for his prosthesis. We understand that it's en route to, they're going to have to mold it, and it'll be en route to Honolulu. And then the employee will have to go back to Honolulu to get, to get fitted. I have to say, though, that with this particular employee, the accident review board found that it was neither the fault of the authority or the fault of the employee, and it was just some unfortunate accident. And that the employee association has gone above and beyond. They raised money for him. And since the time of the accident up until now, and the chairman, Dominic, Louie, and I, we visited him at the hospital, at his house. That the employee has not gone without a paycheck because the employee is under workers' comp. And in addition to not going without a paycheck, the employees did raise some funds to cover some of his incidental expenses while in Hawaii. And so he's gone to Hawaii, got fitted, came back. But all I know is that we're doing everything we can for this employee, and it's just a process, and it's a matter of time soon where he would have his leg fitted. The employee's spirits are up, Senator. He can't wait to come back to the port, and his workplace accident is not going to derail him from coming back.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that he's well and safe. So, Madam Chair, that's the only questions I do have, and I look forward to the oversight hearing.
Thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Duenas, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. All the questions that I had have been asked, and so I'm satisfied with the answers. Except to say also that I concur with you as the chair that this is exactly what we should be doing, and the public is benefiting greatly from the information coming out. So I thank you for that, Madam Chair, and I'll stand by for the oversight hearing.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brown, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I did want to ask a question, but I also wanted to make a comment because I think there's the other side of the coin with regards to why these policies are in place with regards to random drug testing. And Senator Tello earlier followed up on a question I would have asked with regards to, and where we left off last week, was the fact that there has been no random drug testing occurring at the port. These policies are in place to be proactive. It's not so much waiting until an accident or an incident happens where an employee or someone else can get injured or seriously injured or killed because they may have a fellow worker there who might be under the influence of illegal drugs that might be harming themselves or harming the public. And as we also discussed, the port is a point of entry, and it has been a point where illegal drugs have come into this community, drugs that are devastating our families that are in this community. So it's a different perspective, GM Respicio, perhaps to look at, that being proactive is a good thing. It's not so much invading people's privacy. The majority of your employees there that work at the port are under designated positions that would be authorized to do this type of testing. But I think to try to create the impression that there is no real issue except for a few incidences that just happened in December of last year, when for 2 years, a whole year before, almost maybe 15 months before the pandemic actually happened, that there's been no random drug testing. And that is more so a preventive measure to encourage people not to be on drugs. I mean, I'd like to believe that everyone is doing the right thing, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And there's a bigger issue beyond the individual. It's a responsibility to your fellow coworkers, and a bigger responsibility of the Port of Guam as it is the property and provides a service to the people of Guam, that their interests also needs to be protected first and foremost. So with regards to drug cases, because I know you've been settling a number of cases, GM Respicio, have you settled any pending drug cases that went through the Civil Service Commission, where employees were found to be tested to be positive for illegal drugs?
No, and first of all, I have not been settling a number of cases. The board has authorized the deputy general manager to move on those cases because it was a lost cause. And so in answer to your question, Senator Brown, we have not settled any pending drug case that you're asking about. But
One question I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, is there anything more you want to add?
No, but I'm very familiar with the case you're talking about and why exactly it is that the port is in the Civil Service Commission at this time.
I do also, Madam Chair, wanted to, because I did see the employees from HR and at the time, the acting human resources manager had made some comments. I know you did not put any of the participants under oath because we understand this is an informational briefing. But I do want to point out, since the previous acting HR manager did not disclose, I mean, that particular employee has a conflict with regards to drug testing issues. So for the record, Madam Chair, I just wanted our members and the general public to be mindful and aware of that, since that individual did not disclose that and tried to infer for some reason that that individual was taken out of the drug testing notification for some ulterior reason. So I just wanted to put that in place.
Was that the current senator has a conflict by her very nature, sitting on that panel and discussing things that she was privy to while she was general manager of the port.
Not at all, Madam Chair, but I just simply
Senator Brown,
yes.
please.
No, I understand, but when statements are made to try to disparage, I think it's important, as we should all, Madam Chairs, point out conflicts. That's all. I'm simply saying there's
Senator Brown. If there is a concern, can you please put that in writing? And I do not know who you are speaking of, but can you please put it in writing and we can inquire further? Okay.
No problem. I'm just simply, because those statements were publicly made, I just felt it was important for the public as well and our listening audience. If we do have a conflict, it's important that we acknowledge that and state that for the public interest.
Right. I am unaware of what you mentioned earlier, but if you can please put something in writing and send it to us as formal record so that we can inquire further about it, I would really appreciate that. And if we can please move on to any other questions you may have or concerns.
No, I don't. I'm simply, Madam Chair, just responding to statements that were publicly made, just to clarify, because I think there was an inference that someone was taken out of the process for maybe perhaps other reasons. That's all. That's simply all I'm stating, since those statements were publicly made during this informational briefing.
Okay, thank you. And if you could please share with us the information that you have so that we can inquire further to understand the whole situation that is in front of us that was mentioned, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Moylan, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just further clarification for the director, please. Mr. Director, okay, I understand then that in 2019 this was not an issue. In 2020, it has become an issue, and there's been accidents, right? And I think you mentioned where there 3 accidents. Is that correct? And we did some drug testing as a result of those accidents.
That's correct, Senator Moylan. All of 19, there was no positives. And then almost all of 2020, there was no positives up until the latter part of the year. I believe like end of November, early December. One was a workplace accident. And then the other one is another workplace accident. They're 2 separate incidences. And from the first and second testing, 3 became determined that were positive as a result of the work tests, drug test based on a workplace accident.
Okay, so each accident we have positive for the drugs based on the testing due to the accident. Did you explain which drugs were identified, or can you for us?
Yeah, it was crystal meth.
Okay, and did you mention 2 did not show up for the testing, or were they eventually tested?
So what you're talking about is the random drug testing that we had in January, and 24 were tested and 24 were negative, and then 2 evaded, which they eventually, that same day, I believe, they turned in their resignations.
Okay. Likewise for the other tests where they ran away, or that situation where they were tested, was that also for ICE? Did they test positive for that?
Yeah, so they always test for the whole gamut of illegal drugs, including THC. Those 2 that were evaded, they were never drug tested. So whatever their reason was for resigning, they resigned. But the 24 that were tested in that division included meth, THC, ecstasy, every illegal substance they test for. So 24 were tested and 24 were negative.
Okay. So your total numbers of those tested positive for drugs, which we had the drug-free workplace, in that period of time that we're talking about, that was a total of 5. Is that correct? With 3 incidences, or
no? I mean, we can't say that the 2 that evaded were on drugs because they were never tested. You can make that assumption, but I don't make assumptions. And so total were 3. And then when we did our drug testing on that particular division, 100% came back negative.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no further questions. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Senator Blas, forgive me, I can't recall. Do you have any questions at this time? Did I call you earlier? Okay. Okay, I believe we got everyone for this informational hearing. General Manager, Mr. Respicio, there are some concerns amongst my colleagues here about the occurrence of the random drug testing process. And in the personnel rules and regulations for maritime positions unique to port operations and certified technical and professional positions, I just want to read for the public because I'm sure everyone here has read it. In Chapter 15, the Drug-Free Workplace Program Policy. The statement of the policy is the authority is committed to maintaining a safe and healthy work environment free from the influence of alcohol and drugs. To that end, the authority has adopted a drug-free workplace program. Compliance with the authority's drug policy is a condition of employment. The authority intends to take severe disciplinary action, up to including termination against an employee who violates the authority's drug-free workplace program. Prevention and treatment. The authority encourages any employee with a drug or alcohol abuse problem to voluntarily seek treatment. The authority has established an employee assistance program to provide counseling and referral services for employees with drug or alcohol abuse problems who voluntarily seek help. Prohibited activity. The authority strictly prohibits unauthorized use, possession, including storage in a desk, locker, car, or other repository, manufacture, distribution, dispensation, or sale of illegal drugs, drug paraphernalia, controlled substance, or alcohol on the authority's premises. in official vehicles during working hours or any activity that compromises the integrity or accuracy of the authority's drug and alcohol program, or any failure or refusal to abide by the drug-free workplace program and conviction under any criminal drug statute. Testing. The authority may require employees and applicants to be tested for drugs or alcohol upon hiring. When the authority suspects that the employee's work performance or on-the-job behavior may have been affected in any way by drugs or alcohol, or when the authority determines that an employee may have contributed to an accident involving fatality, serious bodily injury, or substantial damage to property. In addition, employees will be subject to random drug testing. Any positive drug or alcohol test is a violation of the authority's drug-free workplace program. Any test for drug or alcohol abuse will be conducted using reasonable procedural safeguards. The procedures to effectively administer the drug-free workplace program shall be those established by the court. And we also have a copy of the drug-free workplace program policy that I have sent to all of my colleagues, and it shows the processes that the Port Authority may take into rehabilitating those that have tested positive or to termination of those deemed in complete violation of the rules and regulations and the drug-free workplace. The concern here, Mr. Respicio, is that the frequency of the random drug testing should be addressed by the general manager. That is one of the concerns. And so perhaps we can look for ways that you can implement a more frequent random drug testing rather for waiting for accidents to happen and then implement the process then. I do want to note that the accidents that have occurred in the past that you have tested, not every accident involved instances where individuals were using any type of substance. They were just accidents, things that we cannot control. What I'm saying is that you've had accidents in the past, no?
Correct. And what I'm saying is only two of those accidents
right.
tested.
So
Correct.
Exactly. So not every accident that occurred involved any illegal substances.
Only the two that were tested. But
correct.
Can I just say regarding the frequency of the random drug testing? I talked about the AG opinion. This isn't a matter for me to decide. In the AG opinion regarding random drug testing, in order to pass constitutional muster, the government employer has the burden of demonstrating a special need to conduct suspicionless searches beyond crime detection. Random drug testing based on a general need to deter drug use is not constitutional.
Do you feel that there is a need to continue random drug testing and to move forward in the frequency? Has the AG opined on that?
You know, if we're going to be guided by the rule of law, we have the Attorney General saying that you cannot conduct random drug testing for the sake as a deterrent. In order to pass constitutional muster, the government employer has the burden of demonstrating a special need to conduct suspicionless searches beyond crime detection. Random drug testing based on a general need to deter drug use is not constitutional.
Okay. And in any measure, have you been able to apply that when it was deemed constitutional, when there was suspicion?
Absolutely, ma'am. The first random drug testing I had was based on a video of one of the employees. In my eyes, he was amping. This employee is one of the two employees that evaded. So I'm not saying he's on drugs. I'm not saying that, but that's what caused me as general manager to do this random drug testing based on that reasonable suspicion. And that's how I proceeded. Now, did I have reasonable suspicion all of 2019? No, I didn't, because the testings that were conducted were not showing any positives. Then 2020, mostly all of 2020, and toward the latter part, when those 3 instances came up. So, so all this talk of have more random drug tests as a deterrent because it's proactive. Okay, so we didn't do random drug testing until that one period, and 24 tested, 24 came back negative. I don't know how much more proactive we've been with our employees, and how much more the employees can endure in this cloud of suspicion that's just permeating throughout this compound.
Well, then I think that we need to take a look at the rules and regulations in the port, because it vaguely gives the port the authority to do random drug testing. And so this is the issue at question here.
Madam Chair, I apologize. The issue is the Attorney General opinion. The legal opinion that says random drug testing for the sake of being a deterrent is unconstitutional. So
that's why I'm saying that we need to address the rules and regulations, because it's conflicting with the AG's opinion.
No. I am implementing the rules and regulations per what would pass the constitutional muster.
With this AG's opinion. So in the past, in 2009, there have been other AGs that take place that have opined on different situations. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So we're going to adjourn this informational hearing. It is now 10:21. We're going to come back at 10:30 to start the oversight hearing. Thank you, colleagues. We're going to come back at 10:30. We are in recess. Okay, good morning, everyone. We are now convening our oversight hearing on the recruitment practices, hiring procedures, and human resources management in the Port Authority of Guam. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. It is now 10:35 in the morning. For the record, and in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, January 25th, 2021, and the second notice on Thursday, January 28th, 2021. Notice of today's hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. As a reminder, as for the general rules of conduct, all must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep your video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you're speaking into your microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app feature chat box. Individuals testifying will first be recognized by the chair, and before speaking shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Each member will be allowed to pose questions to those testifying, and questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the hearing by the host. Okay, I'd like to thank Senator Therese Terlahi, Speaker Therese Terlahi, for being here today. Thank you, Speaker. Senator Torres, Senator Taitigui, Senator Brown, Senator Duenas, Senator Frank Blas, and I think Senator Adam might join us shortly. And we have with us the General Manager, Rory Respicio, and Chairman Santos, and other members of the Port Authority Board. Thank you for being present today. We call this oversight hearing because of the recent concerns within our community. And I want to set the record straight. I am not saying, because I heard that there were some instances where I was saying that the Port Authority has criminals. That's not what I'm saying. We are conducting this oversight hearing, and I sent a letter of inquiry to the Civil Service Commission to inquire if the hiring practices of the port for individuals with prior criminal history is within the left and right limits of the law. And that is simply what it is. I am not making any inference or any allegations to employees at the port. As a matter of fact, I believe that the port is, we have a lot of our employees that are hardworking, and it is an injustice to generalize these statements of negativity about drugs being used and that there are criminals at the port. That is, I have never said that, and that is incorrect. What we are looking at as the oversight for this committee, which is also my fiduciary responsibility, is to address the concerns that the people have with the hiring practices and to ensure that they are within the limits of the law. So let's stay focused on the bottom line, and let's continue this oversight hearing with professionalism and dignity so that we can have an opportunity for the people of Guam to understand what is the statutes, what do they say, and how do we move forward. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, General Manager Respicio, for ensuring that. Okay, Mr. Respicio, can you please give us a synopsis of the Port Authority of Guam's recruitment process?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. But first, I have a brief statement that I'd like to enter into the record. Would I be permitted to do so?
Mr. Respicio, I just want to make sure that your statement is containing facts.
Always.
Okay, you may enter it into the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Senators. I will start today by giving some brief remarks with some perspective, and then I will have two of our staff from our Human Resources Division available to speak and to also take questions during this oversight hearing. I want to also ask if possible to set aside the last 15 minutes before the conclusion of this oversight hearing for our closing remarks. And I want to thank you again. Madam Chair, you made public statements that you are looking into, quote, anyone hired at the port with a criminal record, end quote. You also stated in your news release, quote, while I continue to have confidence in the port's merit system, you must listen to the concerns of our community and ensure that our government is hiring qualified workers deserving of the taxpayers' dime, end quote. You further stated in the same press release that, quote, an additional audit of the port will help us to understand the port's hiring process and the measures they took to provide our people the gold standard of public service, end quote. Madam Chair, in order for the port to uphold the new platinum standard to which our agency has achieved, we have compiled a listing of all of the port's hires beginning in fiscal year 2010 to present. I want to assure you that we are willing to address any legislative concerns with this matter and any other matter you may hear concerning the port. We are committed to doing so in the interest of maintaining the present high level of transparency and accountability. Yesterday, we delivered to you the list of names, and we have requested more specific information from you on this matter. Specifically, we're requesting that you highlight any individuals on the listing provided who you heard are criminals. Identifying these criminals you have heard about will permit us to focus our attention solely on those you
Mr.
have
Official,
heard.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Well, I'm
I
not
did
done.
not, who there has been reference with criminal history. I am not saying that people are criminals.
Okay,
So please get it right. Do not mince my words.
So please also identify those individuals who you heard who have a criminal history, so we can focus our attention on
Right,
that.
and that's exactly what I asked you for in the letter, where I asked you if that you had any employees with criminal history, if you could send us the process at which you hired them and the job description.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in the meantime, we did take a look at some practices to see if there was anything we could learn from the prior general manager and some special insight to see how she rejected applicants because of their past. To our surprise, though, we found that the previous general manager also believes in second chances. A random sampling of past hires as reviewed, case number 1. On October 16, 2017, the previous general manager hired an employee recently released from federal prison after serving time for drug importation convictions for his convictions of conspiracy to distribute more than 50 grams of methamphetamine hydrochloroxide, and then I identified the statute. He remains on federal supervised probation and is currently employed at the port. Case number 2, despite numerous criminal convictions and federal drug forfeitures and seizures, the former general manager hired this employee on April 9, 2015. There was an official misconduct incident while this employee was still considered a casual employee without any merit protection. He was arrested by Port Police on July 9, 2015 in connection with assault and official misconduct for an incident that occurred on the docks. This employee even wrote to the former general manager and offered, quote, my sincerest apologies for my misconduct. Despite his arrest for official misconduct with numerous police reports, witness statements, and even the employee admitting to misconduct, the former general manager did not terminate this employee and later permanized him as a full-time employee. He resigned the following year and is no longer employed at the port. Case number 3, despite a police court certificate of search showing at least one criminal case and without a police clearance as is required, and despite being named in federal drug forfeiture and seizure cases, the former general manager hired this employee on April 9, 2015. On September 30, 2016, the previous general manager permanized this employee. He remains employed at the port. Case number 4, on June 26, 2013, the previous general manager hired an employee who was convicted in federal court of theft of government property in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 641. There was also an official misconduct incident while this employee was still on probationary status on September 12, 2013. He was arrested by Port Police in connection with official misconduct, obstructing government function, and making false reports. Despite his arrest for official misconduct, obstructing governmental function, and making false reports, and with numerous police reports and witnesses, The former general manager did not terminate this employee and later permanized him as a full-time employee following his probationary period. He also remains employed at the port. Case number 5, an employee with a previous conviction on his record for official misconduct was in a similar situation with the previous general manager. That employee was arrested by Port Police on charges of official misconduct and theft of government property on September 19, 2014. That employee acknowledged to the former general manager his unprofessional behavior and lapse of judgment on the unlawful taking of the items. It was an inexcusable lapse in judgment and moral behavior on my part, the employee writes. The former general manager did not terminate this employee following the official misconduct incident, which was his second arrest by Port Police for official misconduct. He remains employed at the port. Case number 6, the previous general manager on March 2nd, 2017, hired an employee who had a police record showing a conviction for criminal mischief as a misdemeanor, as well as one other pending case. We have verified with the Human Resources Division personnel who assisted the previous general manager, and they have all indicated that the general manager was made aware of the convictions and criminal records prior to her decision to hire them. It should be noted that the previous general manager used her discretion to hire employees convicted of felony crimes and allowed employees who admitted to committing official misconduct while under her watch and who were arrested in connection with that crime to remain employed. That is allowable under the rules and the law. Therefore, based on past actions, the previous general manager did believe in second chances. And at this time, Madam Chair, we still have Mr. Sean Cepeda and Ms. Carmen Netadog, who will be here to answer any questions you may have. And I do have all the supporting documents upon your request, and I would be very happy to provide it to you as our oversight chair.
Thank you. And again, this is our fiduciary responsibility to address these concerns that the community has had. There has been inference that I've said that the employees at the port are criminals, and that is in an incorrect statement. The letter that I asked for, the information that I asked for is those that have had criminal history and have been hired with the port and are still hired at the port. That is the concern. And that what we are looking into is if this process that allows them to remain hired, if this is a process that is in accordance with the statute. That's why we are here today. So now that we set the record straight, I'd like to ask for any of my colleagues if they have any questions. Speaker Terlahi, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, can you just clarify whether, so that list goes all the way up until today? Is that complete?
No, this list was based on the past actions of the former general manager.
But I thought the question was regarding up until today. So can we get the rest of the list, please?
But I wanted to report that the application
up until 2020, Mr. Bishop.
And then you've asked us to go all the way back to 2010. So
right, we sent a letter, I think yesterday or today, for 2010, because there were some concerns in the public that we were being biased. So to show that there's unbiasedness, that we went that far back.
But so I did provide.
But for this information, this oversight hearing, we asked for up to the present, from 2016 up to the present. Yeah. So can you continue the status for the current that we have today?
So I did provide a list of all the hires from 2010 to present. And I've asked you to identify those individuals who you've heard have a criminal history. And so we can
focus. What I'm asking here, what I asked you is for those that have criminal history. I'm not asking for a list of what you're hiring.
No,
right.
I know.
I don't know of individuals that have had criminal history. I am asking you if there were practices of individuals who were hired with a past criminal record. So I am not saying that I know who these individuals are. I was asking the port to provide it.
You must be getting it from somewhere, Madam Chair. So guide me, help me, give me the names.
Mr. Respicio, I am asking you for the information to the present. Are you going to provide for us for what this oversight hearing had originally asked for, which was from 2016 to 2020 up to the present, of any hiring that had occurred for individuals with past criminal record?
So based on all the examples I've given and
Yes, do you have anything to present? You've given examples, but do you have anything current?
I do. And
Okay, so can
obviously,
you please tell us this, what they are?
well, there's one
Okay.
case most recently where the individual was convicted of official misconduct. There's
Okay.
nothing in the personnel rules or regulations or in the law. The Attorney General even said that those employees aren't barred from going back into the government. However, the
Okay.
agency head could have used that as a determination to disqualify. But in looking at that particular situation, these are not like positions. The individual who left the Department of Corrections, law enforcement, is not at the Port Police, and he's not doing law enforcement type work here at the port. So the reason why I pointed those past cases out, Madam Chair and Madam Speaker, is to show that the hiring practices and the disciplinary actions are all consistent, and it's exactly what I've been doing over the last 2 years as general manager. Most
Okay, thank
recently,
you, Mr. Respicio. So can we just take a step back? Can we just take a step back and discuss the process that allows employees to be hired even with a past criminal record? And for example, you stated that they are not hired in like positions for whatever reason. Can you please explain to the public, take a step back and explain to the public how that process is or what that process is and how the decisions are made forward that allows the government to do so in accordance with the law?
and so the
Let's
positions,
understand the process first is what I'm saying. Can we talk about the process?
the positions are announced
Okay, thank you.
competitively. If it's open recruitment, they're announced outside the port. If it's in-house recruitment, then it's only those port employees are eligible. The employee is the position is announced. The employees submit an application. The applications get rated by HR staff, and they're grouped in accordance of the highest rating to the lowest rating. And based on the number of applications received, we either go 1 round, 2 rounds, or 3 rounds in the interview process. And then it's the interview panel who comprises of employees of the port that will interview these applicants and then come up with a recommendation to myself as a general manager. And the general manager or agency head can choose anywhere of the top 5 that's been recommended. Now, as a standard practice, I probably 99.9% of the time, Madam Chair, defer to the recommendation of the interview panel. And in the case of the individual that's been the focus of as of late, he was top recommended by the interview panel. And we also have HR staff here if you have any specific questions. But that's the merit process. I do not predetermine who the outcome is going to be. That's just the process.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Vice Speaker Barnes and Senator Ada for being here today. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so that is the process. Now, if the port were to hire individuals with criminal history, what is within the left and right limits of the law that allows the port to hire in specific job descriptions?
Thank you for the question. So there's instances where a government employee is barred from employment. One is if they're on the sex offender registry, they're not employable by the government, or they cannot be a contractor or a subcontractor of a government contract. The other case is in the case of family violence, an agency head, even down to a supervisor level, cannot hold a government job if they have a family violence conviction. And so the third thing for me is if an employee at the port cannot get a TWIC card that's highly regulated by the Department of Transportation, then they cannot be a port employee because a TWIC card is a requirement of the job. And so those are the 3 factors to which an employee would not be eligible to work in the case of the port.
Okay, so there are 3 types of classification where employees are not eligible, and it's those that have a criminal record, of criminal sexual conduct, family violence conviction, and if they're not able to get a TWIC card. Are all employees at the port required to get a TWIC card? And can you
Yes.
please explain what a TWIC card is?
A TWIC card is regulated by the Department of Transportation, and it provides a security access clearance and security into the security areas.
And what is the process in order to get a TWIC card? Do they have to go on background investigation? What is the process?
Yeah, they would apply with the Department of Transportation, and they have their own processes to screen these applicants. And in some cases, if they're denied based on a record that they have, the employee can always appeal, and to clarify that that record has been either adjudicated by the courts or expunged, and so in those few instances I'm aware, the employee was able to receive clearance.
And this is a federal process, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And every employee that is hired at the port today has a TWIC card. Is that correct?
Unless, Madam Chair, they're a new employee and they're going through the process.
And how long does the process take?
I want to say like 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. So by the 2-month or 3-month period, they should have a TWIC card.
And what we're doing in the meantime is they're having to be escorted into the yard for those that are going through the TWIC card application.
And what if they're not able to? What if they are denied a TWIC card? Do you still keep them employed during an appeal process with DOT, Department of Transportation?
Well, I had one case where the employee was initially denied. And so because the Department of Transportation denied this employee's, it was a renewal that was denied. I did not allow that employee access into the yard. That employee, because they were in another division housed inside the yard, I moved that employee to a division for physical space outside the yard, but that the individual was still doing that particular assignment. So if an employee, Madam Chair, is ultimately not allowed to get a TWIC card, then the employees know that they have to be terminated.
Okay, and that is within the law.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will open it up. Thank you for the process. This is what we're trying to understand is the process. I'll open it up to my colleagues if they have any questions. Speaker Terlahi, do you have any questions at this time?
Well, I just wanted to follow up with the list that was provided earlier. So do we now have a full list of the number of times persons with a criminal record have been hired at the port? Or are there more and you were just giving us examples?
So, Madam Speaker, I was giving some examples to demonstrate consistency between the past and the present. I don't have a list of those employees with criminal records, is what I'm asking the committee to identify. And I'm trying to ask the committee to identify who have they heard have criminal records. Because you're talking about some employees who are 20, 30 years at the port. They may have got a police clearance early on, showing
I believe
that
the question was asked about hiring practices in a certain number of years. So for me, I just want to know for those years who was hired. And you said you gave a list of all that was hired. And if you went through the files of those who were hired, if you could tell easily whether they had a criminal record or not, and whether that's all I thought we were looking for in this list. And if that's not available, then yeah, the examples, for me, I just want to know the relevance. We want to know if you're saying it's a common practice. So how common is it? What types of criminal records are we talking about? And what positions? I think the question also asked, what positions are these people in? Because that's what's relevant for me. I want to know what positions are they in? What types of crime were they accused of? So the second question would be for those who you said must be terminated if they don't receive approval under Department of Transportation, then, but you also said that you transferred one employee to a physical space outside the restricted area. So which one is it? Are they terminated or are they just moved to another area?
So what I said was, while this employee was going through the appeal process, they were moved to another area, and ultimately they got a tweak card.
Okay, all right. All right, for this round, Madam Chair, I'm done, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Torres, you're recognized. If you have any questions at this time.
Can you just move on to others? I'm still formulating a thought.
Sure.
Please.
Senator Duenas, do you have any questions at this time?
I don't at this point, Madam Chair. I think that's most have been covered, but I might down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ada, do you have any questions at this time?
None at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Senator Brown, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And certainly I appreciate some of the questions that have been asked by my colleagues prior, since the current general manager is inferring certain things with regards to my tenure. I assume even though there are a panel of 2 former general managers here at the port, but I seen the attempt here to try to have us reveal who potentially these individuals are. But I do like the question that was raised earlier by one of my colleagues. Didn't want to ask the current general manager. Is he aware during his tenure, has he hired anyone that has a criminal background during his tenure now in the past 2 years he's served as general manager?
Yes. Yes, as part of the process, those things become aware to me as the hiring authority.
And to what type of crimes are we talking about? Do you know?
Well, can you be more specific in who you're actually talking about so I don't make any...
Well, you were very quick to want to point out during my tenure, but I will state for the record, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee and to the public, I've never knowingly hired anyone with a criminal background. So I'm asking General Manager Respicio, he is saying he has hired individuals with a criminal background. Can you tell us what type of crimes these individuals may have committed, since you're aware of what type of criminal history they may have?
Well, that's very convenient to say you didn't knowingly, but try using that at the Civil Service Commission, where they say management knew or should have known. The responsibility and the onus always falls on the general manager of the port for all of the actions at the port. And so if you want to name any particular individual, name the individual.
Well, you seem to have pointed out 5 or 6 individuals. So I'm asking you, are you aware during your tenure, perhaps last year in the midst of the pandemic, was there anyone you could have hired that had a serious criminal history at the Port Authority of Guam, since you say you are aware? Could it be someone who might have a sexual assault, someone who has a felony, perhaps even something more serious?
So be more specific, Senator Brown.
Oh, I'm not going to be more specific. You've come out and make public statements referencing my tenure, and I'm stating for the record, as I'm telling you, as I'm saying to the committee, as I'm saying to the public that I serve, I never knowingly hired anyone with a criminal background. You mentioned there's a process with regards to hiring, and I'd like to ask your HR staff perhaps to elaborate for the committee's interest and for the public. What exactly is that process with regards to what is it when someone applies for a job, and what is that process that application goes through with the HR in terms of their review? And then after that, I believe before an employee is considered, they go through a panel, I believe. So I'd like, since you have offered your HR staff to elaborate on that for our edification and that of the general public, Madam Chair, if I can ask them that question of outlining what that process is with regards to hiring, so that we can be all informed on that.
Madam Chair, can I?
Senator Brown, Mr. Respicio, Senator Brown has a question to HR to understand the hiring process. And so if you can have the HR personnel yield, as you offered earlier, to the questions. And Senator Brown, please, if you can be direct with the questioning.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and proceed with your question, Senator Brown.
I just wanted to ask of the HR staff there, there's Ms. Netadog and Mr. Sean Cepeda, which could answer the question. What is the procedure if someone comes to the port and applies for a position at the port? What is the process of that application and that individual? What do they go through to be reviewed by the Port Authority before it even gets to the general manager's desk for consideration?
Well, the HR staff rates the application and reviews their background and their resumes if one is provided. Then we establish a list based on.
Can I ask, Madam Chair? I can't see Mr. Cepeda. Is he on?
Mr. Respicio, can you please have have Mr. Cepeda be visible for the camera?
He's there and he's on the camera. It's just the camera's a bit far away.
Oh, he's right there. You see him, Senator Brown, at the table in the room, the Port Authority?
I might have to scroll. I just want to make sure he's on for myself and anyone else. I'll scroll down. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cepeda.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, again, with the process, when applicants submit their applications and or resumes, we rate it, we go through their experience, and then we establish a list, which is then forwarded to the general manager for his approval. And then ratings are sent out to the applicants. And then after the 10-day period, if we move forward with the interviews, it's conducted by in-house panel members.
Mr. Cepeda, can I just ask, when you talk about ratings, what are you rating for? What is in that process of rating?
Their work experience based on the position they're applying for.
Okay, so you come up with that initial assessment through your evaluation at HR?
Correct.
Okay, and then what's the next step?
After we evaluate the applications, we establish the list based on rank from highest to lowest.
Okay.
And then after that, after the eligibility list is signed, we send out the ratings to each individual who applied.
At that point, with regards to the application, is at that point, I know the process has changed. I know that Senator Torres in the 34th Guam legislature had passed a new process to be set up that an employee could not be asked the question with regards to any criminal history that they were charged with until, I believe, a offer. I guess it was called the Fair Chances Hiring Practices Act. How is that from prior, and how are you doing that now with regards to reviewing if they've submitted a with regards to the Guam police clearance? How is that handled?
Well, based on the law, if they're upon condition of selection, if they're not guaranteed the employment until they provide their clearances upon conditional offer.
And is the clearances only the Guam police clearance?
It's both police and court.
Okay, but is that just of our local court? Our Superior Court of Guam?
Yes, Superior and Guam police clearance.
Is a federal clearance required from the federal court here, the district court?
No, ma'am.
No, it is not. Okay. Is the applicant also required to indicate on their application whether or not they have been convicted of a felony?
Correct, yes.
Has in all cases of an application, an individual always indicated if they have been convicted of a felony, if they've been convicted of a felony? Are you aware, Mr. Cepeda?
They're supposed to indicate it on their application.
Okay, and if they don't, how would you know?
Until they provide us the clearances.
Okay, but right now there's the federal court is not required, is what you're telling us.
We will find that information upon the applicant applying for the TWIC card.
Okay, you're assuming that you'd be notified once the application for a TWIC card is submitted. Have you ever been notified?
In the past, we've asked for federal court clearances, but applicants were turned away from the federal courthouse, district court.
Do you know why?
No, they didn't give a specific reason. I'm not aware why a federal court didn't allow them to provide that.
Okay, and did you guys ever follow up to check or inquire as to why the federal court was not providing such clearances?
From what I recall, they provided a database for HR staff to go ahead and go to the courthouse to look up certain individuals.
Okay, so would you say in all cases that all applicants provide their history?
Upon conditional offer, just police and local court.
But that's all that's required. But do you know if that's been provided in all cases if they've had a federal conviction?
Not that I'm aware of.
After this process, you mentioned that once they've been rated, I guess, depending on how many positions, then it goes to a panel. And who sits on this panel to review these applications?
Normally, it's the division head for that particular section and other supervisors, mainly.
Okay. And what happens during this process?
Well, the applicants are interviewed orally, and then the panels have a score sheet which they use to determine each applicant's score.
And is the panel provided with the full application of this individual and all their submitting documents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you can't guarantee to know whether or not documents are submitted in all cases then?
The panel just reviews the application and resume.
Okay. Do they also review their as you mentioned, it's only the local court and the local police. Do they also review those clearances?
No, the panel doesn't have access to that. The interview panel does not.
So and why is that? Why would they not be provided that information to be aware? Particularly if it is a designated position out in the yard, if they're working in a position out in the yard and they've been convicted of a federal crime relating to drugs, would that not be something the panel should be made aware of at the time of evaluating that applicant?
No, it's based on the personnel rules and regulations.
And what is that, Mr. Cepeda?
Let me pick it up. Easy. This is the one. Okay, I'm just gonna cite it from the rules now.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cepeda, thank you.
Okay, I'll just read the whole sentence on regarding from chapter 4, the application form. The general manager may not make any pre-employment inquiry about disability or about the nature or severity of a disability on application forms, job interviews, or in background reference checks. So those reference checks also include police and court clearances, to my knowledge.
Does it state that? I certainly understand with regards to discrimination, but does it state specifically with regards to police and court clearances?
I define the background checks as a police and court clearance.
Okay, that's your interpretation then?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you at least provide that information? I think it'd be helpful, Madam Chair, if the committee could review that, because certainly I think in the process of all this, it'd be good to know where the gaps are and certainly what we can do if through policy to address that. But I do want to point out, and it would be my last comment on this round, Madam Chair, that if issues are brought to my attention, as in one particular case, I just want to relay this to the committee and to the public. We did have an employee that was at the port for quite a number of years who had been hired to a designated position, and by virtue of that specific designated position, that individual could not have had a convicted felony. It was brought to our attention during my tenure as GM that that particular individual did have a federal conviction. And upon review of that individual's application and records at the port, it was determined that that individual did not review his felony, did not indicate, nor did provide information or evidence of his felony conviction, nor did that individual mark the box that's designated on the application. Essentially, I might be miswording the question, but essentially the question is asking, have you been convicted of a felony? So if there's any opportunity where information is brought to my attention that would be in conflict with our desire to ensure that the port is properly operating, I've taken respective action, and in that particular case terminated that employee. So I think we need to look at the process, review the process. Inferences are being made by the current general manager with regards to decisions that were made during my term. But I think it's important to outline, as Mr. Cepeda has referenced, there are several layers of review process that occur at the port with regards to application. And whether or not information was or was not provided, I think that's something that needs to be looked in so that there's an actual accounting process of what the actual applications are, what information was submitted, and certainly at the time when decisions are being made to hire someone, signatures that are there to recognize who actually reviewed it. Because right now, that doesn't seem to be a clear process. And you do unfortunately have circumstances where individuals, of course, maybe because of their history, don't want to report that. But of course, you know, they want the opportunity to have a job. So at least at this point, I think those are things certainly that we can look into. And I certainly in my policy position now will look into. But, you know, inferences are what I know. I'm willing to comment on what I know. I certainly hope and appreciate the question earlier from our other colleagues that all current cases, including to date, be brought up so that all of that information can be provided to the public. With that, thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for the opportunity to ask these questions.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Mr. Respicio, does a felony negate you from being hired as an employee with the Port Authority of Guam?
Yes, it does. And I also needed to point out that in accordance with Section 4203.1 of Title IV, no person shall be employed as a police officer in the law enforcement positions with the authority who has been previously convicted of a felony in any civilian or military court, a crime involving moral turpitude, a crime of domestic or family violence, regardless of whether he was pardoned or commuted by Imagalan Guahan regarding such conviction. So,
okay, thank you, Mr. Respicio.
A felony for the, go ahead.
Senator Taitigui, did I call on you? Do you have any questions at this time?
So just Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And, you know, we were talking about the hiring of individuals with, well, let me ask the general manager, in your capacity and authority, you're allowed to hire, if I'm not mistaken, the deputies, a board secretary and controller on your own as an unclassified. Is that correct? Am I missing anybody?
Sarah, okay. You're missing everything because the board is the one that hires these individuals, not myself. Okay. All of them that you named.
Okay.
Well, so wait, the controller, we don't. He's a classified position here at the port, and so it'll just be myself, the two deputy general managers, and the board secretary that the board will hire.
That the board hires. Okay, and so you have no authority to hire anyone. It all has to go through.
Senator, I'm not saying I have no
These
authority. I'm struggling to understand your line of question, and I will work harder to understand what you're trying to say. But the board hires myself, the
That's okay.
deputy,
I'm sorry.
the board secretary. Everybody else is hired through the merit process.
Okay, so in any unclassified positions that you don't have that ability to go ahead and hire on your own, that has to be gone through the board. Is that correct?
There are no unclassified positions other than those positions I named.
Okay, which is, can you please name them again, please?
General manager, deputy general manager for operations, deputy general manager for administration and finance, and the board secretary.
Not the controller then. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
On that position, it's not comptroller, it's a financial affairs administrator, and he is a classified position.
So have you hired anybody in the unclassified employees since you became general manager in the unclassified position? Have you hired anyone?
In the unclassified position, no, because I talked about the 3 positions that the board hires.
Okay.
And our board secretary position is still vacant.
What do you or the board have with authority? Where does it say that gives you the authority to hire unclassifieds?
Senator, we do not have unclassified positions at the port except for those established by statute, the general manager, the deputy general manager, and the board secretary.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that first, because, okay, I'll move on. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask that particular, another one. The hiring of the individual that, I guess has been in the media with regards to the convicted misdemeanor, or am I saying that right? Is it a misdemeanor or is it, how do you,
it's
title his
Mr. Misdemeanor for official government misconduct.
Okay, thank you, Director. And in the hiring of this individual, was this position created or was it a position that was already created? I mean, or did you create this position or was it already there?
It was a position that already existed.
Okay. And how long was that position vacant?
I have to check the record, but I need the committee to understand, please, how the board has allowed the Port Authority to remain solvent. Coming into this port in January 2019, I learned to the transition committee that there were as many as 20 new hires that were being processed, not even interviewed yet. So we managed to ask them to put a hold on all these new hires until such time we can do an agency-wide assessment of the hiring needs. And so we really are hiring, like for last fiscal year was 23 total, where average was 40 to 50 hires a year. We have few less staff we do today than we did in the beginning of 2019. And so the board allowed through board policy through this budget that was adopted to create a vacancy pool. And so whenever these positions are needed by the division, but I want you to know too that the agency head, the division heads are the ones who request for these positions to be filled. And so I don't operate in a vacuum.
So you don't know, okay. Was this position, was it announced, was there any announcement for that opening of that particular position? And I still want to know how long this position was vacant for. If you can get that information too, I appreciate it. If you can give the oversight chair. But was this particular position posted? Was it announced?
Yes, the position was recruited per the merit system. It's a classified position. It was openly announced, and we had people who applied for the position.
Okay.
Oh, how
Okay,
many?
thank you. And sorry, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have for now. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Titagui. Senator Blas, do you have any questions at this time? No? Okay, I will circle back to Speaker Terlahi. Do you have any questions at this time?
No, just, well, yeah, if, as described by Mr. Cepeda, the process, so at what point does a termination in your past employment come up in the hiring process at the port?
Mr. Cepeda, can you please answer the question?
Can I listen to the question again? I apologize.
Madam Speaker, can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, yes, sure. At what point would a termination in past employment come up in the hiring process?
I didn't quite get your question, ma'am.
Okay, so if you're considering an applicant, does termination from a prior job come in to the record at any time? And if so, when?
No.
You don't find out whether they were terminated from their last job?
Only if it's indicated on the application.
Okay, and if when they get, do they get their police report, their police clearance before or after the interview?
It's upon a conditional offer of employment.
So that's after the interview. Okay. And so what is the step after the conditional appointments are made? Is that subject to the discretion of the general manager, or are they just made according to the interview panel's priority listing?
It's based on a panel recommendation.
Okay, so then you send out notices and you tell them where they are on this list, and then so who reviews prior convictions? Or when would they review the police report?
Upon submission, after they're given the conditional offer.
All right, and is that
after they're offered the conditional employment, then that's when the applicants provide both clearances.
All right, and at that point, is it still subject to discretion whether they are hired or not?
Yes, correct.
And whose discretion?
The general manager, ma'am.
Okay, so a general manager could overrule the panel's priority listing, based on an interview and the application when the general manager reviews what is, their response, including police or court clearances. All right, and then, okay. All right, and just to follow up, if we could, just don't want to forget about the list that you've inquired about, Madam Chair, and I'm still wanting to get the response to that list. The positions, I'm curious about positions where persons are hired. So the general manager has indicated that no hiring of persons with a criminal record was made for those in law enforcement positions. Well, I want to make sure, first of all, General Manager, is that your statement that no one with a criminal record or police record is hired in the law enforcement positions at the port? Is that correct?
Correct, Madam Speaker. It says specifically a felony.
Right.
Felony.
What about misdemeanors? Are they hired in those positions? When you did your review of the positions and the hiring, are any in those positions?
Not that I'm knowingly aware.
Okay, so, but you've made the list, right, for the chairperson, and so there's none on that list that are in law enforcement positions at the port right now.
Madam Speaker, the list that I provided, was all the hires from fiscal year 2010 to present. It's everybody. It's everybody that was hired by the port during those periods. Now, what we have to do, and I'm asking the committee for guidance, is to identify for me who have they been hearing has criminal records. And then we'll be very happy to submit records based on those guidances. I think it's a reasonable thing for me to ask this committee.
Mr. Respicio, I'm only going to say this one more time.
And I'll keep repeating myself.
Mr. Respicio, the inquiry was that those that the port is aware of that have past criminal history or record. That is inquiry. I do not have names for you. I am asking that information from you. And the speaker asked you a question. So please answer the question.
All right, so my interest in this oversight hearing was because prior to the hearing, a question had been sent to the port asking, what hires had been made and in what positions of people who had passed, I believe the question included criminal records. And so I think that's a fair question. I think I want to know as a member of the legislature who or what positions at the port might have people who have past criminal records, because this is a matter of policy for the legislature to examine and determine. Are we going to continue this policy where we allow any type, and persons with criminal records to be hired? And we might want to limit it to certain positions. We might want to exclude them from certain positions. And I think that's absolutely within the realm of the legislature to inquire about and to find out. And I'm not asking you names. I'm asking you positions and based on the question that was sent to you prior to this hearing. So I would like to know which positions and frankly, it's just because so what we've heard from the hiring process is that a discretionary determination is being made that it's okay in this certain position or this prior record is okay, and I've not been in that position to make that type of determination. So that's a judgment call. But I just want to know where it's being made. I think that's fair, and I think we should know that throughout the government, and not just the port, but throughout the government, what positions are not excluded, right, from hiring those accused of different types of crime. And I would have liked to know what the records show. Like, are we talking about drug crimes? Are we talking about official misconduct where we can't determine what the crime was, or it's very specific? And I agree with those who mentioned earlier about, the law enforcement officials tell us, the legislature, that drugs are coming in through one of our ports. It's either the airport, the commercial port, or the post office, that they're coming in, or they're coming in with people who are coming in through those areas. And those are the only ways that some of these drugs are coming into Guam, because they're not being manufactured here, or at least on a very small scale. But the major, component of what we are trying to fight here on Guam is a drug problem that is being imported. And so I think, have every right to find out, what we're talking about when we're talking about positions at the port, and just what types of criminal records are being, included in this hiring process. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, can I just...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Torres, do you have any questions at this time?
Well, Madam Chair, can I just clarify? I appreciate what the speaker was saying in this FOIA request. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to read it word for word. You've asked me to provide resumes of all individual applicants received by the Port Authority of Guam for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And you amended this to go all the way back to 2010. In your own FOIA request of me, He didn't say with those of a criminal record. You said all individual applicants received by the Port Authority of Guam. So I asked you very respectfully to identify those individuals that you like
Okay,
us
Mr.
to.
Respicio, I understand what you are getting at. If your agreement over a phone call that I had with you is not enough for you to say that you would provide me with the criminal histories, and I will write it in the FOIA so it can be on record for you to clearly understand what we are asking for, I will rewrite the FOIA.
So are we gonna?
Okay,
Are we
I think that's enough, Mr. Respicio. We are going to move on. Mr. Respicio, we are here. I understand, and we will make that to be very specific for you. Senator Torres, do you have any
That's
questions
how I
at this
operate,
time?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Respicio.
I'd like to bring the question back to the application process. You were asked previously, Mr. Respicio, about the process by which you're hired, by which employees are hired at the port. And I believe that a lot of your discussion about your discretion in addressing any employee that might have a criminal record is addressed in at least three different places. One, in the application form itself under suitability determination, where it asks, it's essentially three questions. One is whether there is any dismissal from employment or dishonorable separations from the military service. A second is convictions for violation of law, and it just talks about violation of law generally. And then another third disclosure is family members in the government. So that's one tier where disclosure is made. Secondly, the personal rules and regulations for the Port Authority of Guam, which is adopted by Guam law, also has under section 4410 rejection of applicants. And that highlights some of the areas that you described already, those conditions that would deem an applicant submission to be rejected by you, some of which includes, as you discussed, conviction of a crime, sex offender registry, and also the failure to submit information or to even submit false information. And the item list is from A to I, so it's quite extensive. And any finding of one of those gives you the discretion to reject the application and notify the applicant of the rejection. And then there was some comment today about the Fair Chances Hiring Process Act, which is Public Law 3422, which also talks about that level of discretion when a person has a criminal record and makes an application to the port. Because as you've discussed, and we know just on a read of the personal rules and regulations, that a conviction is not a bar from employment automatically. I wanted to ask you though, because there's a lot of discussion and speculation about the hiring of persons with criminal records. We know that the Fair Chances hiring process by law gives a process by which you have to discern whether a person can be suitable for an employment at a port. And generally it's best business practices that's outlined in law and consistent with many fair chances practices and even your personal rules and regs. But I'm going to ask you a very pointed question if I can. In the list of employees that you provided us, are you aware of one employee that you hired who had a criminal conviction, a felony conviction in 1979? A person who served his prison term, has been out for many years and has worked in both the private sector and the government, the federal government as well, and the government of Guam. A person who was vetted, went through the process, and was determined suitable for some employment at the port. Are you aware of such a situation amongst the list of people? Because you named some things, but I believe that there was at least one person with a criminal record that you hired. Are you aware of a person that you hired with a criminal record felony going back to 1979?
Yes, Senator, and this matter was made aware to me. And if you look at the file, and I will provide these documents to the committee, this individual applied in 2018 at the port and was vetted by the former general manager and that process, and he was deemed eligible in an eligibility listing. When I was hired in January of 2019, I suspended all hirings at the port until we could determine what those priority areas are. And when we needed stevedore casuals, as a former general manager, you know that's one of the positions that kind of rotate through. There was already an eligibility listing for stevedore casuals. I could not re-announce any position until those eligibility listings expire. And so this individual was on an eligibility listing that was vetted by the former general manager, and him and a whole bunch of others at the time in one fell swoop of a pen were hired. And so he was hired in March of 2020, Senator, and he has since was able to get a TWIC card. He's since been productive at the port. So
what can I then ask, if you were to hire somebody, because there are different processes that are outlined in the personal rules and regs in the public law on fair chances hiring process, and assuming that you follow all those to a T, and the person is hired, if a person should fail to secure a TWIC card and not have access, you said this person was a stevedore who's on the yard and would need an access card to get through. What if that person could not get an access card? Are people ever allowed to work without access cards on the dock, or would that make that person now not eligible to continue to stay on the job and have to be fired?
They wouldn't be allowed on the yard unless they were escorted. So we had a case before my time where an employee could not get a TWIC card immediately. And so they were having to be escorted in daily into the yard. When that situation presented itself to me in another employee, like I said, I moved him to another division because he was in a division. He wasn't a stevedore or equipment operator or any dock worker. He was just in one of those divisions housed inside the yard. And so I did not want to give him access to the yard simply because if we get audited by Captain Chase, at the Coast Guard, that would be a violation. And so this individual that you asked received a TWIC card eventually, and this individual that I talked about also received a TWIC card. So that's that other layer of scrutiny and protection and that vetting process.
So when you're, and I just want to be clear then, so when you're using your discretion as a general manager and you're following, for example, the fair chances hiring process guidelines on what is best business practices to determine if this person is suitable. For example, if a person was convicted of theft, you clearly would not hire that person to run a cashier. That's the best business practices. But maybe that person can work in an area that doesn't involve money or anything, of value, or the mishandling of anything with value. So, for example, that would be a type of suitability versus unsuitability decision. But as general manager, when you're making those decisions, then Rory, are you always given? Then you would have to be given the records and the all the documentation that the employee would give you to substantiate what the crime was, what the restitution was, etc. Is that correct? Or I mean, how could you make a decision otherwise?
Correct. And what I also do is I just Google the name. And when you Google the name, all these cases come up if there are cases involving the individual. So just to say that I didn't knowingly knew or didn't know. It's just not being responsible in those positions of leadership. And you talk about the suitability. There's a difference between a stevedore and a cargo checker. A cargo checker has access to the manifest and additional sensitive information. Stevedore, you know, the kind of work that they do, they don't have anything to do with clearing cargo or inspecting cargo while customs is there inspecting the cargo. So you have in my discretion, I kind of look at the like position. If they worked at a bank and they got fired for embezzlement, you don't want them near your cash register. And so that's the kind of discretion that the policy provides. And so these individuals, whoever we're talking about, I believe they're not in like positions. And even at that, they have to go through a probationary process. They get subject to, they get drug tested upon hiring, and all those clearances are vetted. And if there was an instance where any of these employees did not meet the requirements to be hired, or they have a felony on their record, then I would also take action as general manager to terminate that employee.
And if they lied to you, that's grounds also for adverse action, right? If
Correct.
somebody didn't give you information or lied about something or misrepresent, because it's all laid out in your personal rules and regs anyways, right? If they falsify anything, that in and of itself. So I suppose, you know, sometimes you worry that you might not know something, but the remedies, I would think between what you do, your scrutiny, the TWIC, and then any subsequent reports, you know, the process, there's many layers of the process. But also, I think what I'd like to just bring up, Madam Chair, is, you know, we really need to also remember that under the merit protection system, the Civil Service Commission has authority to investigate any complaints that should be brought up. And I understand that anybody can file a complaint with the Civil Service Commission if they believe that someone was erroneously hired into a classified position in the government. And so, you know, we've had the director, Leon Guerrero, discuss that in other forums before the legislature, where all it really takes is if there's a suspicion by anybody that someone was erroneously hired, that all it takes is a complaint to Civil Service Commission, who will then initiate a post-audit investigation into that hiring process and determine in their own independent way, you know, whether it was in conformance with the law or not. And maybe that's really the avenue that is best suited for all these sorts of concerns that the public has, you know. And in his defense, not that I'm trying to be overly generous, but in defense of the manager, if really we have an issue with somebody or can spot that something is up, really the obligation is on anybody who has that kind of a suspicion of a violation to call it out and give it to the Civil Service Commission, who's entrusted to conduct those and to issue their recommendations. So I just want to bring that up, but thank you for confirming that you in fact have hired somebody who you knowingly had a criminal record and went through the vetting process. I think people just need, that was one thing that we were expecting you to add to your report, in addition to the official misconduct reference.
And an example you asked me to talk about, that vetting process was done under the former general manager. That employee.
Yeah, but the ultimate hiring was yours. Yeah, but the ultimate hiring was yours, and that's why I asked. You know, did you know? Did you see? And was that your discretion? And
well, because I couldn't re-announce the position because it was still eligible. The eligibility for that position, Senator, did not expire, and so we need Steve casuals. I think that's the difference I wanted to point out. And thank you for allowing me to point that out.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Respicio.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Colleagues, is there anyone else that would like to pose any questions to the general manager or to other members of the port? No? Oh, okay, Senator Taitigui, yes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just not really a question, but just a reminder to find out the time frame on the vacancy of that position I was talking about earlier. We can find out how long that position was vacant for. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Is there anyone else? Okay, Mr. Respicio, there are some requests that will be asked of you, and one of them is the vacancy timeline. I am updating my FOIA to specifically state criminal record rather just by going on a phone conversation.
Thank
And
you.
then, is there anything that I might have left out from the rest of the members on the panel if there was any other things that were pending and would like have to be submitted to our committee? No. Okay, so please stand by and we'll be sending those things, that request to you in writing, and then hopefully within 5 days you can get it to us. Okay. We will also be publishing the committee report with some of our findings and what had taken place to here today. It is now 11:50.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I asked if I could have some time to introduce you and your committee to a new hire at the port, and it'll only take about 10 minutes. Okay, so I want to ask you to dismiss Carmen and Sean.
What are you asking?
I'm asking you if you could dismiss Carmen and Sean so we can bring in an individual who is second day here at the port. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, with all this conversation, which is extremely productive regarding second chances and the port's hiring practices, I want to introduce you and the committee to a new hire at the port who came to me and asked for an opportunity to address the oversight chair and to kind of humanize and personalize his journey and this process to which he was hired. His name is Jesse Mendiola.
Hi.
Please proceed. Rory, the mic is on mute.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Senators. My name is Jesse Mendiola, and I have a criminal history. I am proud and humbled to sit here today before you as the newest member of the Port Strong family. I was hired through the merit system and because someone believed in giving me a second chance and not through politics. Certainly and clearly, it was not a political hire as I campaigned for one of the current sitting senators on the Republican Party. The talk over the past few weeks has gotten me really worried that my dream of becoming a longtime employee here at the port might not come to fruition. Even though today I sit here before all of you, I ask, do I have anything to worry about? Is my future in jeopardy? Most of you know me personally, and some of you know my story. But for those who don't know my story, I made some mistakes in the past. I was sentenced to federal prison off island, and I lost everything. I came home with a plan to change my life, and I never looked back. I found the greatest compliment in my life, and I married that compliment. My beautiful wife is a nurse, a public health nurse, and a frontliner. She, along with all the other nurses, are my heroes. I have dedicated my life to helping others turn their lives around. I have become a parole advisor for both the federal level and the local level. I help those inmates transition into society and find a new way of life. Senators, this has been a dream for me to one day not just work at the port, but in a job to where I can provide stable home environment for my family, my kids, and my grandkids. I have worked so hard to get to where I'm at today. My first day yesterday was, pretty ecstatic and amazing. I was welcomed by everybody. Nobody judged me. I felt appreciated and excited to be able to share my skills in the construction industry with my new family here at the port. More importantly, I was excited to be in an environment where my past didn't define me. I want to thank those who have given me this chance, but most importantly, I want to know from you all, our elected leaders, my elected leaders, do you think I deserve a second chance? Do I have to worry that myself and others making the change for a better life will forever be under a cloud of judgment or held prisoner by their past? Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. I am in no place to pass judgment on anyone. We all have a history, and I want to congratulate you on your hire. What we are doing here is ensuring that the process is within the statutes of the law. I am glad that you have this opportunity to rebuild your life and to start new. This is something that every human being has a right to, and so I wish you the best, and I'm very happy for you. I'm happy that you're able to fight the battles that you have fought thus far, and I wish you the best and your family the best.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Is there anyone that would like to make any remarks before we close this oversight hearing? Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Yes, Jesse, I just wanted to say thank you for your testimony today as well. And to the general manager, thank you for your answers. I'm looking forward to more answers. And I too just want to make the record very clear that I voted in favor of the second chance law. And this is, I don't think about that. This is clearly, for me at least, about there are allegations that people, even with the second chance law, police records, court records are supposed to be reviewed, and you're supposed to use your discretion. And they're also, and particularly at the port, I think you're supposed to ensure that we are going to have, safety before anything else, and that there will be no threat of any improprieties, particularly for me involving, drug importation or anything like that. And so I still think it's that it's within the purview of the legislature to review hirings made under that law to see, which positions these affect or do not affect. And, let's face it, we're all here because of allegations in the news regarding personnel that were hired who have police records or court records or, conviction records and are related to high level people in the government. That's why this has become a big deal, I think, and that if their records are being overlooked simply because they are related to somebody high up in the government, then that's relevant. If we are, overlooking everyone's record, regardless, of the type of record or the position that they're being put in, I just think all of that's relevant. And so we just have to keep it in perspective, and that, I don't think anybody is trying to, I think as a matter of policy, we're all trying to follow the policy that we've adopted, and we stand by it. But I still think where discretion is available, that of course we should be determining whether that is still appropriate. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for this hearing, and for trying to ascertain the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. Senator Duenas, you're recognized.
Yes, I wanted to join in and also congratulate Jesse. I've followed your journey as well, but I had to follow our good speaker as well, because I believe what our Madam Chair is trying to accomplish here is that, Jesse, along with you, there's a lot of people with first chances that applied alongside you. There's a lot of people who, have a dream of working at the port, who have a dream of working in the government, who have a dream of secure employment for their future too. And what we have a responsibility to do at the legislature is to ensure that those agencies for which we have oversight, that the buck stops all the way at the top, that the documents that need to go through and be vetted are something that is a full review at the end of the day by the appointing authority, because that is the final signature that goes on a piece of paper to ensure that you and others can realize your dreams. So for the people of Guam that are watching, Jesse, I'm sure they're proud for you and they're rooting for you, but they're also rooting for their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, anybody who comes to Guam to make this beautiful place their home, to have an equal opportunity as well, and to ensure that when they walk away, should they not be able to receive that position, that they know it was fairly done, and that all for purposes of transparency and accountability, everything was in place. And I believe that that's what our chairwoman and this good committee is trying to do. So Tsuzuz Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to share my thoughts after having heard collectively, particularly by individuals who have had the responsibility in the past. I wanted to be a listener, but I thought that I had to add that in the end, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Since there are no others Senator Taitigui, you're recognized.
Just Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for having this oversight. I would have never, I know Jesse. I remember listening to him when he came to testify and did his civic duty as a citizen to come and testify on some important legislation, and appreciate it. And this is the first time I found out that you've applied at the Port Authority of Guam. I didn't realize that. So congratulations on your hire. I'm glad to see that you did go through the merit system. You know, I did want to ask, maybe I didn't hear it clearly. My volume here is very badly, but what position are you have applied for? Jesse, I think it's on mute. It's on mute, so I can't hear.
I applied for a plumber 2 position, which was my position in my previous job in the private sector. Once I found out that there was an opening and on the announcement, I immediately jumped on the opportunity to try and get in. There's no harm, no foul in me trying to get in. And by the grace of God, I was selected for, I got rated, and my rating, you know, this was all new to me. So I got a, you know, I guess a decent rating, and then called for the interview. And I guess the impression I made upon the panel was to their liking. So the selection process, I was selected in the process and hired conditionally upon my turning in of my police and court clearance.
I'm sorry, Jesse, I didn't hear it. You got the position again was what?
A plumber 2 position.
Oh, okay, plumber. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I have a bad connection here, plumber 2. Okay. And Jesse, when you were hired in this position, you said that you heard about it. You was it posted somewhere that you heard about this opening?
Yes, I check the government online registry every now and again. Actually, I have my wife do it because she's my wife. So she checks it for me, and she told me about an opening here at the port, and it was a plumber position, and that's exactly what I do for the last 15, 20 years is plumbing. So, you know, it's no brainer. Okay. Let me give it a shot, see where it leads me to.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions, and it's always good to see you. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you, Jesse, for your testimony, and congratulations again, and we wish you the best. It is now 12:02 in the afternoon. Colleagues, I'd like to thank you for participating in the informational oversight hearing. Mr. Respicio, members of the port and members of the board, I'd like to thank you for all your hard work and dedication that you have done, ensuring our island receives our goods and to make sure that we are in a safe environment. I am hoping that we can continue to work together to identify some of the gaps that, if there may be, that we can address and move forward in policy to improve it. And I'd like to thank all the employees at the port for their hard work that they continue to do, especially during COVID, coming to work every day without any breaks, ensuring that we are able to sustain ourselves within our community. So thank you for your hard work. It is now 12:03. We will adjourn this oversight hearing. Thank you very much. Have a good day and God bless.